Really unfortunate just how incredibly terrible the Titans are yet again this season. But I think I can do enough to get them back on the right track. I think I've done that pretty well with the last 3 teams that we covered. And the Titans are just one of those teams this year where you're like, okay, they got Cam Ward, they got Jeffrey Simmons. What else? What else is there? What else is there for them? They don't have anything else. They're one of the most talentless teams in the whole league, which is, I don't want to insult the players in the NFL, but in comparison to the 31 other teams, there is so little talent on this team. There's so little optimism from a roster perspective of what this team could be in its current state. The fact that they've won a game is astonishing to me. It's absolutely shocking. So we're going to go through this right here. We're going to talk about, the coaching staff. We're going to talk about the current roster, what we'll do in the draft, what we'll do in free agency. And I think it all starts with what the current state of the team is. And the current state of the team is basically that photograph that I have right there, which is, what? Never mind. It's the most, what the hell are you gonna do team in the entire league. They're so bad. Mike McCoy took over for Brian Callahan, who they fired. Nick Holtz and Denard Wilson holding on to those spots. And, Holtz hasn't improved anything Holtz hasn't improved anything with Callahan gone. Denard Wilson, I've ranked him pretty high in the last 2 deep dive series that I've done as a defensive coordinator. I don't think he's bad. I think he's done a great job with the front 7. There's just not a lot going on the back end with the secondary, and we'll get to that. They're 20th pass defense, still 25th in rush defense, despite what they have up the middle there with Simmons, Sweat, and Sebastian Joseph Day and Cedric Gray. That's a good little 4-man group, but really he's had nothing else to work with this season. And is he going to get punished for that by not being the defensive coordinator when the next regime comes in? Probably, because he's not this blow away great defensive coordinator either, right? He's not like what Patrick Graham was when he sort of survived these last couple Raider regimes. I do think Denard Wilson's going to get a high-ranking defensive position next year. It just won't be here. And I think that the main focus is going to be a new regime, most likely an offensive coach, because you got to turn around the 30th ranked pass offense and the last ranked rush defense as it stands right now. This is Thanksgiving weekend as this is being recorded, and that's yards per game at this point. When you have Calvin Ridley, you're supposed to produce better than this, at least in the passing game, and Calvin Ridley just hasn't showed up. You need to produce better with the run offense when you have Tony Pollard and you have Tajay Spears. You just have to. You're supposed to have this 1-2 punch at running back, and you're just god-awful. So a lot needs to change here, and they do have a lot to work with, nearly $110 million in cap space coming up, and they don't have, great, like I said, they don't have these great players that they need to make sure that they retain. So a lot of this money is going to be spendable for that, I would call it tier 2 free agency class that you're probably going to have to pay a borderline tier 1, of course, because you're not a great team, and that's usually how it ends up happening in the offseason. But it's not a team that is without something to really look forward to moving into the next season. And there are some studs. They have a couple. Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the entire league, consistently great. Can play across the entire defensive line, really, and play extremely effectively. Cedric Gray, breakout star this year for this defense. You know, if you go back to my deep dive series, I did not think highly of Cedric Gray at all coming into the year. He did not have a great rookie season. But here in his sophomore year, really stepped it up huge. You know, like that someone in this linebacker group, I said it in the deep dive series, someone in this linebacker room needs to step up. And Cedric Gray has done that. I think that I'm really optimistic for him going into year 3 next year when he gets some more help around him in the defense. But to come in, be a green dot linebacker in year 3 for whoever your defensive coordinator is going to be, I think that's a really positive. It's a real positive for this defense. And then on the offensive side, it's not all doom and gloom. Peter Skoronski, one of the most consistently solid guards in the league. He's worked out from his draft spot. You know, he gets better. He has really good technique. He lacks length, but he finds ways to work around it. He's never the issue as to why the offensive line isn't playing well, and I think that's really important when he's kind of surrounded by guys who are just underperforming. I'll say that. There are duds all over this team, and it's, you know, we talked about the backfield and the receiving group sort of there at the beginning a couple minutes ago. It can't be understated that the wide receiver room and the running backs have just been so terrible. You can throw the offensive line in there as well. Like there's a lot of duds here. There's a lot of duds. Pretty much everything outside of the 3 studs that I named. You know, you throw in Tavondre Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day into the stud thing, the interior defensive line. Everything else has been a dud for the most part. And you can't even blame it on Cam Ward. Like, Cam Ward didn't even get a real opportunity here to show what he could be as the number 1 pick because the running backs have been terrible. There's been no one in the receiving room that's been out there getting open for him on a consistent basis, running great routes. Like Calvin Ridley was supposed to be the guy to go out there, run great routes. And then they had like these younger guys that were going to sort of come up underneath, like Alec Ayamanor and Chamari Dike. And like DK's been a great return guy, but neither one of those young guys have been like, oh, this is going to be a really good wide receiver once he gets more experience and they get some more chemistry. Like, you haven't really gotten that in that impression. And then the defense, it's the secondary. The secondary is just brutal. And I like Woods and Hooker at the safety position. They've underperformed, but they've also kind of just been hung out to dry by what the hell is even going on in the cornerback room. You know, L'Jarius Sneed, injuries have plagued him, but when he was healthy this year, he was giving up a 138 quarterback rating when targeted, which is brutal. That's supposed to be the guy that's your number 1 corner, and he's giving up that, it's just inexcusable for your number 1 corner to be giving up that type of production when he gets targeted by opposing teams. I don't care what's going on with not being able to get a pass rush off the edge, with, you know, not having help on the other side of the field. Like, you're supposed to be a number 1 corner in the NFL, and you're giving up that type of production. It's just been a complete flop for the Titans. You know, and then who's the other cornerback on the other side? They just brought in Kyer Elam, but he's not necessarily long for this world. Jalen Armour Davis, Darrell Baker. Like, they got nothing going on there. So there's a lot that they need to look to improve. And there are guys that they can bring in that can improve it. I don't know if there's someone that can like drastically improve it, but they need to figure out a way to raise the floor at least in these 3 categories in particular. You know, you aren't in a position because you are a bad team and you're not going to attract the biggest free agents, that you're not going to be able to raise the ceiling to like some drastic level. But you need to go out and target people that are going to raise the floor of this group to put you in at least the top 20 in the NFL. Maybe you're only ever going to be 15th to 20th next year in these 3 position rooms, but you need to get the floor up there to give your quarterback a chance, to give your front 4 a chance to actually be what you're hoping that they can be, and that's drive you to at least show some signs of life that they just haven't had the last 2 seasons. Jumping in here to remind you guys that if you're watching on mobile, there's a new feature. It's called Hype, where you just kind of swipe the comment section, and then there's a button that says Hype, and you hit Hype. And then because of the size of my channel, I get a little boost in the algorithms from it. Another way you can help boost me up, hit the thumbs up button. Even if you don't like what I'm saying, if you think I'm incorrect, still hit the thumbs up button, but then tell me in the comment section how incorrect you think I am. Both of those things help at least push me out in the algorithms as well. But let's try out this new Hype thing, guys. Try out the new Hype thing if you're watching on mobile. It's really cool. Let's get back to the content. So it goes without question they're going to need a new head coach. And these are the top 3 candidates that I really like for them. I like the idea of them bringing in like a young head coach that they can have there long term, that they can establish a culture, build around them. This isn't a situation where you want to bring in like this veteran head coach type, like what we saw the Raiders try to do with Pete Carroll. This is a team that needs to grow, and you want to bring in somebody that has an upside that they can all grow together. And it starts there with Clint Kubiak. I think he's got to be the top option for them. The system that he runs, that Shanahan tree, him coming over, from what he's doing in Seattle right now with Sam Darnold, being able to actually make Sam Darnold better than he's ever been. I think that matching him up with Cam Ward is an ideal situation for this organization. I would argue that you can put Cliff Kingsbury in that conversation as well. What he did in Arizona, I mean, from an offensive perspective, you look at what's happened since he left, you can kind of tell he wasn't the problem there necessarily. Now, was he ready to be a head coach at that time? Maybe not. But you get some more experience in there. He's now worked with Dan Quinn, who's a really solid culture builder. And, he can take sort of what he's learned, I think, in that situation and now maybe apply it here in a second run. And you're giving him a young quarterback in Cam Ward. He's done great work with Jaden Daniels in the first year and a half, minus the injuries that Daniels has had. And I think Cam Ward, from a throwing perspective, is probably a better arm talent than Jaden Daniels. Fundamentally, I think Jaden Daniels' execution has far exceeded expectations. I think that the Kingsbury offense has played a huge role in that. But if you ain't going to land one of those two guys, then I like the idea of Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator, coming over and being the head coach. I know he's going to be a hot candidate this year. Under the learning tree of Jim Harbaugh for all these years, and I love the idea of him getting this opportunity as well. I think his age, again, is a great factor in this. I think him being able to take on the defensive pieces in particular, and then bring an offensive coordinator along with him potentially that can be a main focus for the offense and just the offense. I think there's an advantage to that that they could tap into. So it will require a new offensive coordinator, and I sort of got pairings that I like here. If you're looking at Jesse Minter, who we just talked about, that's when I would really like to see Mike Kafka, who's like my number 2 option here, be the one that gets the offensive coordinator job. Kafka is currently the interim head coach of the New York Giants after being elevated from offensive coordinator when Daboll was fired. The Giants' offense hasn't been a problem for all intents and purposes. Jackson Dart's played great. We've seen in Kafka's head coaching game so far that Jameis Winston has played well. We'll see what Jackson Dart does on Monday night. But for all intents and purposes, I think Kafka sort of established that he wasn't the issue there in New York. And I think putting him with a defensive-minded head coach that's going to sort of allow him to just have the full control of the offense is really what he'll be looking for. He's going to be a head coaching candidate, but he's not going to stick around in New York. So he's either going to be a head coach somewhere or he's going to be one of the top offensive coordinator candidates. I think bringing him in, if you're Jesse Minter, is a great idea because then you've got a guy who's got head coaching experience now kind of at this point, and someone that you can trust to just sort of run the whole offense, who's got offensive coordinator experience as well, calling plays and all that. If I'm Clint Kubiak, Andrew Janico, who's been, a regular feature here, the quarterback coach, I think bringing those guys in as a pair would be really great. And I think the same thing can be said about Cliff Kingsbury and Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn's got a lot of experience as a coordinator, and he's got head coaching experience as well. So I think bringing him along with Kingsbury could be really advantageous also, to sort of help keep everything on track. Have somebody that knows the system, can run the system. And I think to bring in Anthony Lynn, who's an experienced running backs coach, you're going to want this team to start to have some sort of identity with a run game to help out Cam Ward and to shorten the game and keep your defense off the field and allow them to sort of pin their ears back when they get onto the field. And you do that with a great run game. So I think Anthony Lynn can sort of bring down like that run and gun, the spread them out, air raid offense that Kingsbury loves to run, and bring it back down to sort of like a more balanced offense. So I think these are really good candidates that can be matched up really well with whoever you decide to be your head coach. And then from a defensive coordinator perspective, I look at Larry Foote the same way I sort of look at Kafka, where if you're bringing in a defensive head coach, Larry Foote probably has no interest in this because it's sort of a lateral move for him at that point to go from Todd Bowles in Tampa to, let's say, Jesse Minter. But if this is Clint Kubiak or if this is Cliff Kingsbury, I think Larry Foote would be a great candidate to come and be the actual defensive coordinator, call the defensive plays, come up with the defensive philosophy and strategy. I also like Jim Leonard getting an opportunity here. Same sort of idea. Get elevated to a place where he can be a true defensive coach. And then Carl Scott, who's the current pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach in Seattle. I could see him maybe being like a sneaky candidate to be a package deal with Clint Kubiak. A guy that Kubiak can sort of steal from Seattle and sort of bring that Seattle success and that Seattle philosophy that's been built there by Mike McDonald and sort of just transfer it over a little bit with a new little spin, but some good continuity there where everyone's got chemistry and everyone will be on the same page with the same goals and understanding what the overall philosophy, strategy, and goal is for day to day, week to week, etc. If we look at the current state of the offense, I mean, it's brutal. I said it's brutal. I mean, Gunnar Helm has been a good tight end this year. He sort of beat out Chigakonkwo at this point for me. But I mean, man, a whole lot of damn nothing here. A whole lot of nothing. A whole lot of underachieving veterans. It's just not good. It's just not good. And then when you get into who's an upcoming free agent, yeah, Kevin Zeitler, the right guard. Van Jefferson at wide receiver. Chigakonkwo, who just hasn't achieved much this year. Oli Udoh is a rotational, sixth offensive lineman for you. There just isn't a whole lot of talent here. And Kevin Zeitler's probably going to retire anyway. He's going to retire. He's going to go to some contender. He might go back to Detroit or something on a cheap contract, but he ain't sticking around here. There's just not a lot of optimism for this offense in its current state. Going over to the defense, we talked about Simmons and Sweat. It's a good 1-2 punch on the interior. Cedric Gray, really good, but I mean, what's going on in the edge room? What's going on in cornerback? You got Snead still under contract. Woods and Hooker, maybe they can bounce back with a better defensive philosophy. But I mean, Cody Barton, I guess he's an okay linebacker too, but you can get better there for sure. And you look at the impending free agents, Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day are probably two guys you want to look to bring back. I think you can get them on good deals that don't just, I mean, it's hard to hinder you when you got over $100 million in cap space, but you'd want Key in there to be at the very least a rotational edge player. You want Sebastian Joseph Day to sort of keep that 3-man interior going. Maybe Shai Tuttle is somebody you want to bring back. But the corners, I mean, Daryl Baker, Jalen Armour-Davis, Kaiir Elam, I don't see why any of those guys come back at all. There's just again, it's another group, offensively, defensively. It's who? Man, it's so talent depleted, So from an internal roster perspective, like I tell you, Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day, I think are the ones worth bringing back on either side of the ball. There's no one on the offensive side I feel is worth bringing back. Maybe you bring one of them back, like a Van Jefferson and like that third wave of free agency. But from the initial, Arden Key and Sebastian Joseph Day, I think you can get them on cheap deals. Key and Day, I just gave them basically the contracts that they signed when they initially came to Tennessee. Key, 3 years, $21 million. Joseph Day signed a 1 year, $6.5 million deal. So I just bumped up to 2 years there. I think he's I think he's played well, and he's played well to be a part of this interior group and keep that strength, at least a strength for the defense moving forward up the middle. I'm cutting L'Jarius Sneed and getting $12 million in cap space. L'Jarius Sneed, like I said, he's been absolutely terrible. 138 quarterback rating when targeted this year when he's healthy. It's just been a flop. Cut your losses. Bye. And then Tony Pollard. Cut Tony Pollard. You save $7.2 million there. Nothing wrong with that. And then I'm trading Calvin Ridley to Arizona for a 6th round pick. Let's call it a 6th round pick in 2027. A low risk thing for Arizona. Get some veteran wide receiver depth there. And we dump a contract. And then Arizona, if it doesn't work out, it's a no-lose situation for them, really. And we walk out of this with almost $135 million in cap space. So we're not really... We don't lose anything that's significant and a positive contributor to this team. We're just not losing that, and we're keeping, at the very least, some positives on the defensive side in the front four to at least have something to build off of going into free agency in the draft. So I am being extremely aggressive in free agency. Extremely aggressive. It starts with going after and getting a starting running back, and Tyler Algier coming up. He was a good running back in his rookie year in Atlanta. Then, they took Bijan to, I guess, be like a 1-2 punch. But Tyler Algier, he, for all intents and purposes, if they had a more competent offensive philosophy in Atlanta, there's no reason why that shouldn't be a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery type of pairing for Atlanta. But Algier gets like 30% of the snaps. I think he can come here. He can be a starter. You give him this Kyron Williams style contract. And I think it works. I think you're putting yourself in a great position here to have a guy who's ready to be a starting running back, who should be a starting running back in the league. And he's got power to him. He can play in the receiving game. He can be your 3-down running back. And then you can still have Tajay Spears back there to be like a change of pace guy, a good little, like the role that Tajay Spears should be playing on this team. And then I'm looking at Brady Christensen coming from Carolina, 4 years, $77 million. Brady Christensen for the last 2 years has been pretty damn good. He's just sort of lost in a really underrated Carolina Panthers offensive line. But I think he can play anywhere. I think he can come in. He can be your right guard. 4 years, $77 million. Is it an overpay? Maybe a little bit, but you have all this money to spend. And like I said, that tier 2 of the free agency class coming up, you need to attack that, pay it like it's tier 1. And then you got Boye Mafe, 4 years, $98 million. Come in, be an edge player for you. You're so weak at edge. You need somebody to come in. Mafe has sort of looked like a guy on the rise. But Seattle's got so many guys in there, so him hitting the market, I think you can really go after that. Then there's linebacker Quincy Williams, who's not going to be on the Jets next year. And I think, guy with some starting experience. I think he's an upgrade at your linebacker 2 spot over Cody Barton. So again, you have that to work with as well. And then in the secondary, I just want to throw some stuff out here at, veterans like Cameron Curl and Amik Robertson. Cameron Curl, 3 years, $30 million. Just give you something like that, especially if you're bringing over someone from Seattle. They love those 3 safety sets. So you, even with Hooker and Xavier Woods, Cameron Curl does not just become somebody who eats into people's snaps. I think having the depth there as well, raising the floor of what that group could be. A lot of this is just about raising the floor of these positional groups. And then the corners, Jalen Watson from Kansas City, 4 years, $75 million, and Amik Robertson from Detroit, 3 years, $50 million. They're big contracts for guys. Watson is a starting outside corner for Kansas City. Amik Robertson gets a lot of reps there in Detroit. And I think that they're in a position to pay these guys. You front load the deals. Front load the deals with the guaranteed money. And then if it all doesn't work out, then you just cut your losses down the road. But this should again raise the floor. And I think Jalen Watson has the potential to be what you wanted L'Jarius Sneed to be, both coming from Kansas City. But even with this, you're still at $46 million in cap space left over. So you can still attack other positions after you get through the draft to fill out the roster with some more veteran talent in certain position groups to make sure that you at least have the depth where you can have a rotation somewhere. So you're just not depleted the way that you are right now. So let's talk about the draft. They currently hold the number 1 pick. I'm trading out. There's no reason to hold the number 1 pick. You need way too much here. You still need so much talent. Get out of number 1. And I think a team like the Raiders will be the perfect candidate to come up to number 1, and you don't got to go so far back. With the Raiders, you're going back to 5. You're getting 37, 105, and a 2 and a 3 next year. Maybe you can work it out where you get a 2 this year and a 1 next year, but I like the idea of getting all these extra picks and then opening up to be more aggressive in next year's draft if you need to be for, a high-end wide receiver talent like a Jeremiah Smith, for example. But with all that said, I'm taking Arvil Reese there at 5. A hybrid player here, early down off-ball linebacker, and I think pass rush situations, you put him there at edge. Play him like that. And I think also there's a world where he's just a straight-up edge rusher also. Like, I think you play him the way Dallas maybe wanted to play Micah Parsons early and then eventually just transitioned him to edge. I think Arvil Reese has more to offer from an off-ball linebacker perspective. Then the second round, I'm taking 2 wide receivers. Chris Brazzell and Chris Bell. The 2 Chris's, one from Tennessee, the other from Louisville. Rounding out this wide receiver room. There's not going to be a lot of veteran options out there. You could probably find a veteran option in free agency. But for me, it's just like you get these high-end rookies in here in a good wide receiver rookie class. I like the idea of doing that. Then in the third round, I'm getting Chandler Rivers, cornerback from Duke. Adding to that secondary also, staying aggressive with these positional groups that you've been lacking. Jayshawn Barham from Michigan at 401. Got linebacker experience also, off-ball linebacker experience also. So you've got versatile players you're adding here. Antonio Williams, cornerback from Clemson, a smaller guy, more of like can be a smaller slot guy. He's coming in at 5'11 right now, 5'11", 190. 5'11", 190, I think is what he's coming in at, so he's probably 5'10". But he's a fun little guy to add there in the 4th round. Then you get DJ McKinney at corner. Again, more corner depth there. Max Ionaker from Arizona State, get some offensive line depth. And then Darius Taylor, just adding him there at 209 to play like running back 3 for the roster potentially. Maybe Tajay Spears just doesn't have the juice and gets beat out for running back 2. You never know. The running back classes are always very volatile, especially when you get to day 3. And it's not a great running back class, but maybe you find some diamond in the rough. That it's not a great running back class, but then you hit them with the famous last words type of scenario where could it be a great running back class? Who knows? So with all those moves, this is what the offense would look like if I was in charge of the Titans and all this worked out. Cam Ward at quarterback still, obviously. You get Tyler Algier at running back. The rookies, Brazzell and Bell, to pair with what would be second-year player, Alec Ayamaner, the wide receivers. Young wide receiver group, but can grow with Cam Ward. Tight end Gunnar Helm winning out that running back, that tight end 1 spot. And then the offensive line looking pretty much the same, but you had Brady Christensen there at right guard. And then the defensive side, a lot of new faces. You got Boya Mafe there at defensive end. Arvil Reese, will be sort of like a hybrid, like I said, off-ball linebacker and defensive end. Arden Key will get some reps there as well on early downs when Arvell Reese will be your off-ball backer. If you get to more traditional, especially a 4-3 defense, you have Gray, Williams, and Reese as your linebackers. Simmons and Sweat, you got Sebastian Joseph Day, of course, rotating in there as well. So what you've created now is a really solid front seven. This is a really great front seven now. When you really break it down, like great interior, you got a solid defensive end group here with a healthy rotation across the entire front four. And then Cedric Gray, Quincy Williams, you got Arvell Reese, the rookie, in there that can play some off-ball backer. Cody Barton is still on the roster as well. So you've raised the ships there. Then you get to the back end with the cornerbacks, Jalen Watson, Amik Robertson, and Chandler Rivers, 3 brand new guys to play corner. You just throw whatever the hell is going on there this year right now, throw it in the dumpster, bye. Throw it right in the fire. Throw it in a dumpster, push it off a cliff. Gone. And then you got Xavier Woods and Monty Hooker competing for reps with Cameron Curl in there as well. I think a lot of 3 safety sets could be advantageous. Curl can play close to the line of scrimmage, help out with the run game. But I think you've really improved this defense more than anything else. You've really driven it up with these veteran additions, being aggressive in the free agency, and getting a top-level blue chipper in the draft. Pretty much all I got. That's all I got. It's tough to rebuild really bad teams. And you definitely can't do it all in 1 year. But I think kind of like what we saw with the Jets previously, the Giants and the Raiders that I've done, is that I think there's a path to get on the right track. There's an exit for you to get off of if you're the Tennessee Titans that'll get you going down the right road and to help you build on your current rookie quarterback Cam Ward, that you can build off of what you have on the interior of the defensive line with your great linebacker Cedric Gray having a great year. It's like I said throughout, raise the floor. Don't worry so much about the roof right now, the floor. And I think that's a really good strategy for a team like this to take. Just get out of the basement and then build from there. Become a more desirable place to be. And I think that's what I was able to do to some large degree here. And I appreciate you guys coming. Thumbs up, comment, mobile, swipe, hit the hype. And I will see you guys with the next video next time. Bye.